Alrighty. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Thursday Talk Show. I have a very special guest with me here today. His name is Huy Nguyen, and we met just a couple of months ago actually at a brokerage event. It's been great getting to know him. He's been in the Seattle area for over 17 years. He's a native from Vietnam, and so he came over to Seattle and started working in the banking industry after college. Has been in the banking and mortgage industry for over 11 years. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I'm glad to be here. Well, thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming on. I mean, I know that you have a lot to offer and a lot to say. I mean, just in the short time of knowing each other, we've had multiple mastermind meetings and things like that where we've been able to share a lot of, kind of stories and details and information with each other. I mean, you're a very smart guy.
Thank you.
I'll say that.
I appreciate that.
So let's go back because you have migrated to the United States.
Right.
So where were you originally born and from?
Yeah, so originally I was born in Long Xuyên, Vietnam,
Nice.
which is about 2 hours south of the Ho Chi Minh City, which is the biggest city in Vietnam. I was born there, was raised there, but I actually moved to the United States at age 13. So when I first moved here, it was a big challenge. English wasn't my first language, obviously. I didn't know any English at all moving in here as a child. But what I wanted to do is I wanted, to pursue growth in my life in terms of, all right, if I'm moving to a different country, I have to immerse myself in this culture.
Yeah.
And then the first thing I did was to find English native speaking friends and trying to make friends with them. And at 8th grade, my best friend in 8th grade was my neighbor, who happened to be a Caucasian and an English native speaker. And I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot about the American culture and just really trying to, grow myself into this new life that I'm building.
Yeah. So one thing that kind of comes to mind, especially if you're coming over here as a kid, is the schooling system.
Right.
So how does the schooling system kind of differ here versus over in Vietnam?
Man, it's really different.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Vietnam, I remember as a kid, lots of things that we did back then were just a lot of writing, a lot of math, a lot of, stereotypical that as like Asian are really good at math. It's mainly because that was our main focus as in the schooling system in Vietnam. I grew up learning how to do math without a calculator. I did everything in my head, learning all of that, and I just eventually really fall in love with running the numbers and then doing math and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, schooling system wise were entirely different. Took a little bit for me to kind of get used to the new schooling system here.
Yeah.
But I think my first year and a half, my main focus were just learning the language.
Yeah.
So I was enrolled in ESL classes for throughout my 8th grade, and then got into high school at Mullaney High School. When I was a freshman in high school, I started taking half English classes and then half regular classes, so as my English was improving.
Yeah.
And then by the time I got to sophomore, I completely got out of ESL and then started, taking all the regular classes. Obviously, it was still a big challenge because there's a lot of new words that I didn't know.
Yeah.
As a kid, it was very, I thought it was enticing for me in a way that I wanted to learn, I wanted to grow. And then, as a child, I wanted to do something different. Like I wanted to all right, I'm in this country. This is gonna be my new life now. I gotta figure out what I want to do as a kid. So the first thing is funny because as my first job in the United States was working at Taco Bell. And that was the coolest experience because I was 17 at the time, learning how to working in customer service, and then it was very classic first job, right? It was cool in a way that I was able to bring in a lot of my other friends into the jobs as well. So we turned that into like a quote unquote work and hang out spot. Getting paid to hang out pretty much. But that's where we learn. That's where I learned a lot of my communication skills, like my customer service skills, and then just learning how to approach other people and then present opportunity for them. In fact, I don't, Vano. He
Yeah.
actually, I got him a job, his first job at Taco Bell, and him and I
Let's
started
go.
working together as Taco Bell, and now we're both doing real estate together. So it's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
That's a foundation of networking.
It
Right there.
is.
There
It's
you
a
go.
foundation of networking. But I learned a lot from that, and then I kind of grew out of it. By it was a really cool experience how I got into the finance world.
Yeah.
From Taco Bell was every single day I see these two guys, suit, jacket, tie, nice dress shirts, pull up the drive-through every single day, order exact same thing at exact same time. And I was like, what do you guys do for work? I see you guys every day. You always dress nice. It's like, yeah, we're personal bankers at the bank down the street, Bank of America.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's cool. How does one get a job there? And then they're like, just come by, maybe open an account with us, and then we'll try to figure out how to help you from there.
Yeah.
So a week later, I came by, opened an account, my first bank account with them, and started learning about how to manage money and things like that. And then I started realizing, the first thing I did, I was observing like what they were doing,
Yeah.
and like in terms of like helping opening accounts and then doing the sales and service and stuff. And I was like, I can definitely do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then so basically, I was like, how do I apply? So a month later, I applied, got through several interviews, but my first interview with them were as a group interview.
Yeah.
It was the coolest experience where it was actually my first experience like that too, where there was about 10 of us in this room, very similar to this.
Yeah.
The interviewer asked, hey, there's items on the table, pick an item and trying to sell it to us. My item was a pen.
Hey, the classic.
The
That's
classic.
Classic.
Yeah. I don't remember what exactly I said when I was trying to sell that item, but apparently they liked it and I got the job. But I think a lot of it I was trying to mix in humor into the interaction. One of the questions they asked me is like, why did you want to leave your current job? And I was like, I'm tired of coming home smelling like Taco Bell every single day. So that's
very fair.
Yeah, and that
very
was
fair.
the truth, and it was something that I will remember for the rest of my life because without that interaction, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah, I mean, you just describing that, I picture it like a scene in a movie. It's like you're working at the Taco Bell.
Yeah,
it's kind of fun, but you're just growing tired of it.
I know.
And one day, the rich guys in the Porsche pull up. Like, I'm gonna do your job, but I'm gonna do it better.
Right.
And now, look at you. You're on top of the world. But I want to bring it back a little bit because a question that comes to my mind is kind of what caused or provoked the move to the United States from Vietnam?
Yeah. I mean, as you know, Vietnam is a third world country.
Yeah.
Growing up, I was born and grew up on a farm.
Mm-hmm.
Really, there was not a lot of opportunities out there, job-wise. And then my uncle was actually one of the main reasons why I'm here today. At age 13, he left Vietnam on a boat by himself. And he made his way over here. Actually, he had to stay in refugee camp over in Thailand for a little while. And the way that he did that was as he got over to the refugee camp in Thailand, he started learning English on his own. He started like just go out and then learn from like other English native speakers, and then he put together his own version of like just basic communications sentences, and he started teaching that to everyone in the camp. And because of that, I looked up to him quite tremendously in a way that at age 13 he left without knowing whether or not he's going to survive, and he made it over here. And he was also encouraging other people, teaching other people how to like speak the native language and then emerge in the new culture and stuff like that. So he got over here, put himself through college, graduated as a aerospace engineer, did really well for himself. Then he started doing all the paperwork, and then he brought my grandparents over. And then a few years after that, my grandparents did the paperwork and brought me over. That whole process took about 7 to 8 years before I actually got my visa and a plane ticket to come over here. So a lot of it is for opportunities. There was not a lot of good opportunity for me growing up over there. As a child, I was mischievous over there too as well. I mean, I got in a lot of trouble,
Yeah, I hear you.
and it was a new start. It was something that I'm
That's awesome.
looking forward to, and yeah, it's definitely a new start.
That's awesome,
Yeah,
man. Yeah, I mean, especially at the age that you were, it's such an influential age, and so it's such an adventure to go on. It's something that I've never had to deal with, so I can only imagine
yeah,
how challenging, but also how much great experience, how
yeah,
many good or bad experiences that you're getting. Like at that age, I feel like you're evolving and you're getting a lot more
right,
adversity through
right.
life. And so it seems to me that you and your family are no strangers to hard work.
Yeah, yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. And so, but it's tough because in this country, like you're talking about, it does take such a long time to be able to come over here. And there are language barriers and
Yeah.
things like that. So, how difficult was it for you to kind of break past that? And then once you did, how much more successful do you think it has allowed you to be?
Yeah, no, really, really good question. The difficulty really all depends on how much effort you put in.
Yeah.
Yeah, what as a kid, going into America not knowing the language, my main focus was like, I need to learn the language. I need to learn the culture. I need to immerse myself in this new life that I'm building, so that way I can understand what everyone's is dealing with, what everyone's working through. Then I can provide
Yeah.
any other services that I can help, and that was my main goal. Really, it's just to learn the language, really just to learn, just to be a part of the society.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean. So it's definitely there's times of super challenging where obviously there's a lot of words that I didn't understand. I
Hmm.
remember as a middle schooler without knowing English, and kids are mean.
Oh yeah.
Kids are
Oh
mean.
yeah, they
There's
are.
there's a lot of different words that have been thrown at me, which I thankfully I didn't understand what
Yeah.
they were at the time, but it is what it is. But at the end of the day, it's part of the growing experience, a part
Yeah.
of the learning, the part of immersing myself in this culture. So
Hmm.
really, yeah, it was difficult, but I managed, and it's all just based on the effort that I put in.
Yeah. And so that's super inspiring, man. I mean, to be honest, I would argue that a lot of us have it much easier than that. And I think that's why a lot of us don't ever really get to the point that you're at because we're too comfortable in the positions that we're in, right? So we don't need to change. It seems that a lot of these situations come, and I have some similar experience, not the same story, but
Right,
it's like it seems like a lot of these level up situations come out of, I don't really have a choice here.
right,
It's either I can sink or swim, so
right.
might as well learn to swim.
Exactly.
And in the industry that we're in,
Right.
it's the same
It's
thing.
the same thing.
So once you got into the banking industry, how did you break past that same barrier again? And now I know it wasn't anything new to you, but how did you find a way to maneuver through that?
Yeah, good question too. First thing I did was I observe. I like to observe.
Hmm.
I spent a lot of time shadowing, loan officers, personal bankers, my
Hmm.
assistant manager, my manager, just trying to learn what their jobs entails, and then figuring out, oh, I can do that. Like that's it. Once when I have a light bulb that says, whatever they're doing, I can do it. That means I'm gonna I'm gonna go for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So really, within the 5 years of being with Bank of America, I worked my way up from being a drive-through teller, part-time drive-through teller, all the way to business banker,
Hmm.
and then I left banking because I wanted to pursue something a little bit different.
Hmm.
Um, but we don't want to get into that. I spent about 6 months doing that, learning that at such a young age, it wasn't suited for what I was wanting to pursue.
Yeah, that's
So I
fair.
got back to banking after that, but then I went to a different bank.
Hmm.
At that point, I had to restart, from being a personal banker, and then work my way up with this bank, Umpqua Bank, to become a branch manager. I led my team to prior to me taking over, we were bottom 20 on the list of all the banks in our area, and I brought it up to top three in the area, with lots of, through perseverance and hard work and lots of observations, and then lots of coaching. So I took on a lot of coaching. Mentorship was a big key factor for my success. I look up to the ones that already doing that position. I learned from them. I learned what not to do from them. I learned what to do from them. And and also the biggest thing for me is I'm a firm believer of never say never, because in order for you to learn and grow, you need to make some sort of mistakes, right?
I agree.
Yeah. So a lot of it through observation, take on mentorship, through coaching, and then just have the positivity and the willingness to learn, and that's my biggest takeaway.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's pivot a little bit. We're going to keep it on banking, but I mean, you've been seeing the meltdown that has been going down around the country, SVB, and all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about all of that?
My thoughts on those, really, we were growing way too fast in 2020 and 2021, especially on the tech industry. SVB really are mainly, help startup for tech companies, and these guys have millions, if not billions, in funding from all the investors. So when the tech industry aren't moving as fast as everyone's hoping, which is what we're experiencing right now. That's why we're seeing a lot of layoffs from like bigger companies, a lot of startup layoffs. These tech companies now are not making the same profit, so they're hurting for money. So they're having to go back to their bank to do all these withdrawals to keep up with the payrolls.
Exactly.
And then that happened. The banks run out of money, so that's why we see the failure of that. But reality is, those big banks are tend towards larger, higher end clients. Under FDIC insured, through banking. If you and I, for example, we are protected up to 250,000. So it does have a big effect on how mortgage rates gonna go with those bank failures, which luckily has been on a positive side, because when these bank fails, investors are worried, so they pull their money out and put something to a lot more safer, like treasury bonds, right? So that's what we've been seeing, more treasury bonds going up, mortgage rate going down.
My next question.
Yeah, so we're looking at a really interesting time right now, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, we're not fortune teller. We can't really tell where mortgage rate's going to head, where banking's going to head. So really, we're just taking it day by day. Learn from histories, and then just see if history repeats itself.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to be a little bit tough, especially with the evolution of technology coming on, because of the fact that we have so much technology and we are transferring into this digital age.
Right.
It's hard to compare. Like, everything used to be physical, tender, and stuff.
Right.
It's like, in my opinion, it's harder to compare because it's going to be on so much more of a massive scale.
Right.
And if you get left behind, then you're kind of SOL.
Right.
What do you think some of the consequences might be? Because a lot of average consumers aren't aware of a lot of the stuff that you were just saying.
Right.
So what do you think some of the consequences might be if a lot of average consumers just completely lose faith in these big financial companies and banks?
It's a really interesting question, because I actually just had this conversation with my aunt, who, I mean, I would say she's very successful. She owns multiple houses, rentals, and has hundreds of $1,000s in the bank. So she's worried that something like this is going to happen to her, where if her bank fails, she's going to lose all her money. So it's just a matter of having a conversation with her, explaining to her, you are protected up to this certain amount. Both you and your husband are protected up to this certain amount, because you guys are married, you share a joint account and things like that. But her first instinct was like, I want to pull my money out and just keep cash. And I'm like, that's not the right move. One, it's very unsafe to keep a huge amount of cash. Two, it's just not sensible, because cash over time, we're in a recession. So you're losing the value.
Yeah.
So the sensible thing, and I've been working with her on it, is to utilize the fund that she has to buy more property, turn that into rentals. So then turn into like income and asset producing
Yeah.
income producing assets, which
Yeah.
is rentals, right? So that way she doesn't have to worry about what am I do on my cash, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So those the consequences is really the media spinning in a way that is making a lot of just regular, Joes like us, um, worry that we're gonna not, if our bank fails, we're gonna lose some money.
Yeah.
But the truth is, you just need to know how much you're protected.
Yeah.
Are you going to be protected within certain limit?
Yeah.
And how are you gonna spend these money now, right?
Yeah.
So
That makes sense.
that's the conversation I had with her. I mean, after that, she felt a lot better.
I'm glad to hear
Yeah, yeah, she felt a lot better, and then just now we're just really trying to figure out different ways to make that help her purchase the next property.
Yeah. The big thing that kind of stands out to me in that is it seems that a lot of these consumers and people that are using these banks aren't really aware of the fine print, right? They're not really educated about what they're getting themselves into.
Exactly.
And then when something goes right, oh, yes, let's go. They're
Yep.
super happy. But then when something goes wrong, who did this?
Yep.
Who did this?
Yep.
And so what I'm hearing is it's more important that people like us are getting on the ground floor level,
Right.
and able to communicate this sort of things to help educate our clients, our
Right.
family, our friends,
Right.
so they don't have to worry about this stuff as much. Because let's be honest, not everybody is going to do the due diligence of reading the fine print
Right.
of opening an account with a bank.
Right.
They're just not everybody's going to do it.
Right.
But I think they will listen to people like us a little bit more.
Exactly. I mean, this is what we do for a living, and not just that. This is what we're passionate about. Is just making sure people are aware there's options out there, making sure that they know that what are they being protected by, and that I think that's the biggest thing. And just being open minded, have these conversations, even though sometimes, the biggest thing that I learned being in this culture is that money is such a taboo subject.
Yeah.
In a way that we were trained as kids not to ever disclose any sort of financing issues or strength or whatever it is. I don't believe in that.
I don't either.
Yeah, for me, being a mortgage loan officer, I see finances on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone has the same finance, right?
Mm-hmm.
But being able to comfortably say, hey, this is where I'm at, this is where I want to go, and share that with someone who's truly want to help you get to your goals, that's going to be beneficial for you because as an expert, I can take a look at this is where you are. I can help you put together a plan to get to your financial goals, whether it's home ownership goals, buying a new car, whether it's like paying off credit cards or whatever it is. We as experts can help, and you shouldn't be worried about being open about have these conversations with us because what we've been told through all of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of the problems where, like, if I never know, I can't help you type deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you never tell me, if you never ask me, I can't ever really help you because I don't know.
Exactly.
So I agree with you. It's a tough situation, though, because I think, like you're saying, there is a lot of taboo-ness and sometimes even a level of shame about It's like whether you have too much or too little. There's always a problem in someone's eyes, right? It's like, oh, you make too much money. You shouldn't make that amount of money.
Right.
And I'm upset about it.
Right.
But I think in reality, if like you're talking about, we were able to be honest with ourselves and then actually get real about what our intentions are and what our end goal is, we'd be much better off because then once there's that level of acceptance too, I found like this tug of war for emotions, like it tends to ease up a little bit.
It does.
Because they're like scared of like getting hurt.
It does.
by someone like us, maybe.
It does. It does. I mean, it's unfortunate that like we watch a lot of movies that like portray finance experts to be you're nothing but just care about making money.
Oh, yeah.
So like it sucks to have a narrative pointing that way and when in an industry, but that's why my team and I really trying to make an effort. So every time we have an opportunity to work with a client, whether if they're ready to buy tomorrow, 6 months, a year, 2 years from now, the level of service is the same because we truly want to see you become successful at your financial goals.
Yeah.
So that's why we're here with you now to help you put you through this whole the whole game plan to get you help you get there. But yeah, it's a small struggle that we have to deal with, but at the end of the day, it's up to us on how we want to convey the message.
Well, I think it's important in this business that you have to be able to adapt and evolve and change. And so what are some of the, especially in times like recessions and stuff, what are some of the issues that you've run into, and what are some of the strategies that you've been able to implement so you can adapt and overcome this adversity?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest issues right now, as a lot of buyers are experiencing, are like, oh, mortgage rate is so high, right? It is true. I mean, it's a lot higher than where they were the last few years. We were so comfortable with where rates were in 2020 and 2021 in the low threes, low twos,
historically low. Pretty comfortable too.
Yeah, right. But what goes up must go down, right?
Exactly.
So like I'm a firm believer of that. If you miss the opportunity for lower rate, that's okay. Like you might not be ready at that time, right?
Yeah. But you're also buying at a higher price.
Exactly, you're buying a higher price, so there's a lot of trade-off, right?
Yeah.
Like so, if rates are low, more demand, more buyers on the market, which means less demand, less supply in terms of like listing, right? So we're seeing during those years, especially towards the end of 2020, leading all the way to 2021 and beginning of 2022, we were seeing multiple offers on a home. Like I've helped a lot of clients that was putting hundreds of thousands over asking price just to get into this house to the area that they want. That was a trade-off. But to me, was it the right move? At the time, yes, because they were ready to purchase. Yeah. They were ready to then they're gonna live in these houses for at least 5 to 10 years. Yeah. So yes, absolutely, it's a right move for them. But when you're having to overpay for properties and then competing with other buyers who are on the same boat, that this is not going to be like this for a while. Yeah. So it was a very challenging to see that while we're knowing that, oh my God, our buyers are potentially overpaying for a piece of property.
Yeah, well, it's scary too because a lot of them are just completely throwing contingencies and inspections out the window.
That was another crazy thing too, where contingency were gone. Like people were buying homes as is, without knowing what's wrong with it. Yeah. Secondly, appraisal gap was implemented, which is insane. Like what that meant is, let's say. I know, I couldn't believe it, dude. What that meant is, let's say you find a house that's being listed for $500,000. Yeah. And you're willing to say, I want to get this house. I'm gonna put an offer of $600,000. Yeah. Whatever the appraised amount of that property is, if it's short up to $600,000, I'll make up for the difference. Mm-hmm. So these buyers at a time were putting hundreds of thousands. Down payment. Not just down payment wise, but like talking about hundreds of thousands on top of their down payment just to get into a home. Yeah. Versus now, where yes, rates are higher. So the benefit of buying now is that yes, rates are high, but you're able to negotiate and work with the seller. Yeah. So that's what we've been doing a lot. To go back to your questions earlier, is strategizing with our buyers to make sure they understand there's options out there. Yeah. Even though rates, let's say we lock them in at 6.5%. Mm-hmm. There's strategy like a 2-1 buy down that we've been working with a lot, where we can request a seller to pay for their rate for the first 2 years. we'll get them into a reduced monthly payment,
Yeah.
leading up to the next 2 years, knowing that mortgage rate, if it goes up, it's going to go back down, right?
Yeah.
So knowing that the mortgage rate, when it comes back down, we're going to take advantage of it and refinance out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And the benefit of doing that is, one, you're not overpaying for a piece of property.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you still have inspection contingency available.
Yeah,
so
you get
then
some concessions.
you get some concessions. You get inspections in place, so then you know what
Yeah.
the home condition is like before you actually purchase it.
Mm-hmm.
Three, you're not having to put in appraisal gap, like extra funds from your
Yeah.
reserve, to just to get into a property.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, let's say if you buy it now, you lock in your rate, if rate goes up, you're protected for that monthly payment. Rate go down, you refinance. Versus you buying it at a higher purchase price, you can't go back and say, hey, Mr. Seller, I overpaid for this property.
Yeah.
Can I get my money back?
Well, and if you bought an overpriced house within the last year and a half, you've already lost equity in the property in most areas.
In most areas,
So
yeah.
you've overpaid with no inspection, so you likely had to make repairs on the property, and then there's no opportunity to refinance because you have a historically low interest rate.
Yep.
And then you lose your equity in a year. So it's tough because they're, like you're saying, like, real estate in our economy operates on a cycle, and this is why
Right.
recessions make people rich.
Right.
Let me ask you this real quick: is 6.5% interest rate historically high?
No.
No,
Not
you
at
heard it
all.
here. No, it's not.
Not at
For
all.
all of you saying that it's 6.5% is historically high,
It's
which
not
I've
at
heard,
all.
it's not true.
It's not true.
It's not true at all. So
Yeah.
it's, in my opinion, if you were to sell your house at the top of the market, probably would have been better off renting for a
Yeah.
year or so, and then now, bang, pull the trigger, buy a property with that capital that you made off your investment,
Right.
refinance in the future.
Right.
But the thing is, I just don't think people know.
Right.
How can we get more people to put their eyes on it? Because a lot
Right.
of the time the issue is they simply don't care to know.
Right.
So how have you found that you're able to get people, pull them in, keep them around, take the value that you're offering,
Yeah.
and be more educated on the other side?
Yeah. I mean, with those people that I've helped purchase houses in 2020 and 2021, really the first question I ask is, how long are you planning on staying in this property?
Yeah.
And that's going to give me a good understanding of whether or not it's going to be a good investment or a bad investment.
Yeah.
Because obviously, we understand the market goes up and down all the time.
Yeah.
With real estate, where home value could go up 7 out of the 10 years, goes down 3 out of the 10 years.
Yeah.
And that's expected, right? So if you're comfortable with the monthly payment that we're giving you and you're okay with that, living with it for the next 5 to 7, 10 years before you outgrow this first home and then getting into a second home or something bigger, or potentially turn this into a rental property,
Mm-hmm.
that was a great investment, great time for them to purchase with that goal in mind.
Yeah.
So like I mentioned earlier, everyone has different goals in
Yeah,
terms of their financial
100%.
goals. Whether I want to buy my forever home now, I want to get my first home, get what it takes to be a homeowner for a few years, then potentially rent it out or sell it and buy a second home.
Mhm.
So very important in the way that we and I train my team to do this is figure out the why,
Yeah.
the motive. Why are they all of a sudden we want to become homeowners, right? So you gotta figure out the why and then build a plan that will fit their whys.
Yeah.
And then so with that said, with me, even though I did a lot of transaction in 2021, and it wasn't just like a one and done deal where, okay, I already helped you purchase your house, we're
Mhm.
done, like I don't talk to you anymore. But we're until,
Bye-bye.
until this day, we actually still
Yeah.
still hang out and then talk and text and
Yeah.
message, and then stay close on social media with a lot of my past clients,
Yeah.
and then seeing the growth from when we first helped them get into a home leading to where they are today. It actually made me feel great because a lot of these clients were like, like when we talked, it's like, I know I want to buy a house now because I'm tired of renting. And I might not look for my forever home now, but I am planning on staying in here for a little while
Yeah.
to start, a family,
Yeah.
or like really pursuing their next milestone in their lives.
Yeah.
And for me to be able to follow them on Instagram and watch their stories and see they evolved throughout the last couple of years, that was an eye-opening experience for me.
That's
And then
awesome.
at the end of the day, it made me feel like, okay, even though at that time, they might have maybe overspend a little bit on the home, but the reality is their monthly payment is still very comfortable
Yeah.
because of the lower interest rate. They're sticking with a monthly payment,
Mhm.
and they're living in this house. They're growing in this house. They're building
Got
something for
access to
themselves.
something that a lot of people wanted and couldn't
Exactly.
have.
So like for me, that was rewarding.
Yeah.
And like I said, like I'm huge in like relationship building. So like
Yeah.
like when my clients work with me, I expect them to be 100% transparent with me because I'm 100% transparent with them.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I want them to see me as their lender for life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether, oh yeah, he helped me purchase my first house, and then I'm gonna call him and give him my second, third, or
Yeah.
refi. Like, but that's how I run my business, and it's rewarding for me that way.
Yeah.
And that's how I coach my team as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. And a lot of what I'm hearing you say is like the intentionality matters for the client, and
Mhm.
it's a huge thing. The why, the motivation, the intentionality, it's a big deal. But it's also a big deal from the business side, and I agree, because if you're coming in and dealing with these people like, oh, well, they're just another dollar sign in my
Exactly.
eyes, or whatever it is, like a lot of people do. I mean, the stigma exists for a
Yeah.
reason. That's something that I can acknowledge.
Right.
But when you get into these situations and your intentionality comes through as one of building relationships and actually trying to provide a valuable service with a relationship for the long term, I just think it's so much more effective.
It is.
And that's something that I struggled with in my business when I first started. But how does that play into, like, how am I trying to phrase this? How does that play into your like everyday life and mixing personal with your business?
I love it. I love it. I love being able to call my client and be like, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend? You want to go out and play a round of golf?"
Yeah.
That's more powerful than like anything else,
Yeah.
like because like you're not only making an impact on this person's lives by helping them reach the so-called American dream of owning your first home, um, leading up to still hanging out with your loan officer, still golfing on the weekend with your loan officer, still texting your loan officer anytime you have a questions about your home. So that's really is that's how I've always run my business, and that's why I love it. It's very impactful for me in a way that it will help me continue my business.
Mhm.
And then like, yeah, I tell my client all the time is like, hey, I don't pay for advertising. I
Yeah.
don't, you're not going to drive around Seattle and see
See
my
your
face
face on a
on
bus.
billboards and all buses
Yeah.
or on like grocery shopping carts
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I mean,
Park benches.
right, park benches. I mean, the reality of that is, those might work, they might not work, but the reason why I choose not to do that because I'm such a relational person that I want my business to be repeat from the peers, from the
Yeah.
people, from my center influences, from the people
Mhm.
that I've helped. And the way I do that is really just give them 100% of my attention.
Yeah.
Like show them that, okay, if you have experienced this experience with me, your friends, your family members, your coworkers gonna get the exact same thing every single time. And that's how I've been able to grow my business. A lot of it is through word of mouth,
Yeah.
past client referrals,
Yeah.
relationship with business partners, my COIs, networking group,
Mhm.
home buying classes. So
Yeah.
yes, that's something that we can. Yeah, home buying classes is a great way for me to really dig deep and learn more and meet a lot of like potential buyers in person, right?
Yeah.
So with the technology and advances these days, we chose not to do an online home buyer course, or we can not over Zoom or Teams. We
Mhm.
want to be in person because we want to meet people. We
Yeah.
want to get to know them, build rapport with them,
Mhm.
and then learn about their goals, through these classes, and then potentially have the opportunity to help them get to where they are,
Yeah.
or get to where they want to be, right?
Yeah, that
So,
makes sense.
so a lot of it is just relational. It's very impactful for my business. I love it. This is how I've been running my business, and I don't see myself
Yeah.
doing it in other ways.
I mean, it kind of makes me think of the whole thing about like complimenting somebody behind their back is more genuine, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
so if you can build a relationship where that client, that person that you have, that family member, that friend is going, yo, this dude's a rock star to other people behind your back, that's like the number one form of marketing. It's the shares on Instagram, it's the shares on other social media platforms, it's the things that people find value in and go, yo, check this out. I mean, that's why I believe companies like Amazon and Tesla and all these major companies, even though the big head honchos are hated, they provide so much value that people have no choice but to use and
them.
share it and
Yep.
be like, yo, where's the competition here?
Right.
And so I think it's awesome that you run your business that way.
Thanks,
because
man.
you also are putting the center focus on the people that you're helping, right?
Right.
And I think I could do a better job of that. But when you do approach this from I want to give you such a good experience that you want to go and tell people about me and to use me, it's much better than, oh, you thought I made a cool ad, so yeah, sure.
It is, because then the relationship lasts longer.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of clients that turn into friends, and that's, you can never have enough friends.
Yeah.
So like in our industry, we have to be social butterflies. We have to understand the importance of networking, building relationship, and go above and beyond to do whatever necessary.
Yeah.
To win.
I think people might also give a little bit too much of themselves away, like because they kind of lie to themselves, right?
Right.
Like saying things that they'll do that they don't end up doing.
Right.
And so I think just in general, it comes from like caring about what other people think. And in this business, it's kind of obvious that we have to care about what our clients and our coworkers and our network thinks of us.
Right.
But how do you think that we're able to separate that from like all this background noise of negativity that makes you think, oh, I don't want to be myself or fully honest because I'm scared of what someone else in my network might say?
First of all, for me, I spent a lot of time learning about myself. I spent a lot of time really dig deep and be honest about myself on like who I truly am, what I'm passionate about, and how I want to run my business and how I want to live my life. Once I'm able to get a grasp of that understanding of how I want to run my business and live my life, then everything else just very easy, because then I can focus on, okay, this is how I want to run my business through relationship. This is how I want to live my life, is to provide value, to provide meaningful relationship with not just my partners, but like everyone else, family, like my fiance, my dogs, like all my friends. It's just once you learn a lot about yourself, then you're able to portray yourself to the world in a way that you're not being fake. You're not lying to yourself about how you're going to say this thing, but you're not going to end up doing it, right?
Yeah.
Because then at the end of the day, you're truly living who you want to be.
Yeah.
And who you truly are, right? So that's how I got around it in a way that just spend time, I can give, it took me about 2 years to really realizing who I was and who I am, and how I can add value to like everyone surrounding me, right?
I do want to ask you, for people out there, because I've been in the same sort of position as you, where for the past couple of years I've been really having to work pretty hard to figure out who I am and what I want. And so for some people out there that might be dealing with the same thing, but they're just lost, what are some tips and strategies and maybe routes that you can offer them to maybe implement into their situation?
Create a schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah. The biggest thing that helped me a lot is I sat down and then really truly break down my daily schedule. I started journaling. I started doing like every morning. This is what I do. I started meditating. Is another good way to like really trying to get in touch with your inner self. And then read books. I mean, the book that really changed my life was, and I shared this with you before. It's called A Strength Finder.
Yeah.
The premise of the book is all about helping you figure out what you're really good at. And if you are good at something, you can be a lot better at that thing than go back and trying to find your weakness and then fix your weakness.
Yeah.
So once you identify your strength, at least for me, my strength was relationship building, collaborations. I've taken multiple personality tests.
Mm-hmm.
Took up coaching is another. Look for mentor is another good way to help you through this time too. You know, because people, we are human, right? We are human. We're human of a creature of habits. So like we tend to always revert back to what we're most comfortable with.
Yeah.
So by doing these things, it allows you to discover something new, and then it's allow you to try new things and then grow from it. And that's when you've like, oh, I didn't realize I have this part of my and that's in me, right? And that's when you learn more about you. That's when you can get more. It's exciting, man. That phase of my life was like the best time of trying to figure out where I was to where I want to be.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is you have to manifest it. Like you got to think about it daily. You got to talk about it. You got to like plan it in your head. This is where I want to be. Like, it's, I mean, yes, we all go through stuff, but to me, it's how you get out of a bad situation will determine who you are as a character.
Yeah. I gotta say, I mean, it seems as we obviously look at people that are younger more, it happens with them more often, but we're in such a fast-paced society now. Nobody wants to sit alone and just let this shit stir.
It's unfortunate, bro.
And I mean, my case is a little bit different than yours because it was not one of the best times of my life trying to figure out who I am. I mean, I had a very hard time like figuring out my purpose.
Right.
And finding a point.
Right.
And to me, I think I ended up realizing like, okay, if there's really no point to what I'm doing and I'm like not happy, whatever that means or is for you or me.
Right.
It's like, at the very least, like, why am I just sitting here wasting my time making it harder for myself?
Right.
And it made me do this thing where I had to get very, very honest with myself about what I was and wasn't doing and what I wanted and didn't want. And I think that comes back to the why question that you're talking about earlier, right? And so I think that's another thing is a lot of people don't want to ask themselves the why because they'll find out the answer. And once you find out the answer, then you kind of got to do something about it.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. And you know, like the first thing first, they have to want it.
Yeah.
They have to want it. Like they have to identify that I'm in deep shit and I need to get out of this, right? And they have to truly want it. And, but the way that they want it is they have to figure out their whys.
Yeah.
Like why do they want to get out of this situation? Why do they want to be that next version of themselves?
Yeah.
So once they figure out the whys, if their whys is strong enough, they're gonna make it.
Yeah.
Like it's I mean, you know, just to share with you, like like the reason why I went through my growth phase because I went through a really bad breakup.
Yeah.
Where, you know, that person I thought I was gonna be my forever and this and that, and then we were younger, our career was not aligning where we wanted to be. And then at the end of the day, she just decided, you know what, I'm done. I'm just going to leave without any explanations. And I took 2 years for me to really figure out what did I do wrong? Like why am I, why did she do that? And the first year was the toughest year because I was constantly draining myself and like partying every weekend, drinking every weekend and like just hanging out with friends, spending money left and right.
Yeah.
And then, after 4 or 5 months of doing that, I hit a wall and I was like, I need to stop this because I'm not making myself better. First of all, I'm not making physically. I was gaining weight because of late night drinking, late night eating, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Which I'm thankful for. But at the end of the day, there's something to be done, right? Yeah. And then secondly, I feel like this is unhealthy because the way that I'm doing this, I'm just throwing myself in more. I'm numbing the pain versus fixing the pain.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So then when I really truly sat down and then start writing down my schedule, writing down my journal, and then figuring out I need to do something different, and that's when my why hit. My why was I need to become a better version of myself, so then in the future I would not make the same mistake again.
Yeah.
And then so I can provide for my family and this and that. Like those are my big whys. My big whys has always been being financial freedom, to be able to help my family, to take my family on vacations without worrying about any money, anything like that. But that comes later on. But during that period of time, it was just more like I need to get out of this, and dig deep and figure out what my whys were.
Yeah.
And then slowly, the way that I did it was look for mentorship. Like I went on Facebook, go through a list of friends, and I found that one of my friends was a personal trainer. I hit him up. Hey man, I know we haven't talked since high school. Hope you're doing well, but I see that you're a personal trainer. Will you take me up on your training? And he started inviting me to his gym, and we're doing that. And then constantly, I started building a healthier habits, a healthier lifestyle, where I was working at 6 a.m. every day in the morning, and then I would go to my 9 to 5 job, working at the bank. Come back of that, I'll stop by the gym, do a second session of training with him. We're doing that for, and then when when we're done with that, I'll go back home and start journaling and writing different things and focusing on what I'm doing next.
Yeah.
And then reality set in, and then after doing that for a few months, I started noticing my physical body's gone better. I've lost weight. I feel more confident. And then I was performing better at work. And then that's when an opportunity presented itself at work where I would either stay where I was or take the next leap of become a branch manager. And I took that leap of faith and went into it, and I kept doing the same thing I've been doing for that year, to get to this position. When I got that position, I kept on going, and I just kept on growing and growing. And then from that point on, 2 years after our breakup, I finally built the courage to call her and say, hey, can we have lunch? And then she was like, yeah, I haven't talked to you in 2 years. It's kind of weird. And I was like, it's okay. I just need to tell you something. So met up for lunch. First thing I said was, thank you. Thank you for what you did. Because of that, it had gotten me to realize how shitty of a person I was during those time.
Dude, I swear we have like the same story. It's just running through my head right now.
How shitty of a person I was at a time. Then and then just growing out of it, right?
Yeah.
And then but she was completely caught by surprise.
Yeah.
With that approach, because I wasn't blaming her. I wasn't blaming the situation. I was blaming myself because I was trying to find something for myself at a time. I was lost.
I mean, you see how much better you are today compared to then. It's hard not to think that maybe it was shitty.
Yeah, so it's at the end of the day, it's just really, if you really want it, you will get it.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about living in this country is that we are emerged with resources.
Yeah, that's very true.
It's powerful.
It is
You can
powerful,
learn about everything and anything within click of a button. Like Vietnam is not like that. Really.
We're very lucky.
Yeah, we're very lucky. In Vietnamese culture, once you're born in a family, everything is within tradition, passing down within your generational information. It's not like that. Like my family, I would consider myself as a black sheep in the family, not in the terms that I'm mischievous, but in certain terms like I do my own research.
Mhm.
I learn from my mistake. I grow from it, and then I do things that my family disapproves sometimes.
Yeah.
But because I know that I believe in myself, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, man, like if you guys are watching and you're going through this, honestly, the best thing you can do is be real to yourself.
Yeah.
Figure out what you need to get done and really where you want to be, how you see yourself in the future, and really be real to yourself because that's at the end of the day, that's the most important part.
Yeah, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
appreciate you being willing to open up.
Yeah,
like
man,
that.
for
And
sure.
it's kind of crazy because, as I said, like it sounds like we kind of have the same story, and I'm still kind of in the middle of it. So, I mean, I dated this girl for 5 years.
Yeah.
I'm 20, so
Yeah,
that's like
I
that's a
know.
quarter of my life. So from 15 to 20, and back in September, we finally just like called it quits.
Right.
And I was like, look, I was not nice about it.
Yeah.
I was very shitty.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to admit that now. And during the relationship, same thing that you're talking about. It's like I didn't want to see it then, but I see it now, and I was just bad. And she had her fair share of issues too, but
Right.
at the end of the day, it didn't change the fact that I was very thoroughly flawed, right? And
Right.
so we kind of fell apart, and things exploded, man.
Right.
And I was already dealing with some shit, but I fell off hard. And this weird thing happened. It's basically the exact same thing that you're talking about, but it happened very quickly for me,
Mhm.
where I knew exactly what I was doing wrong.
Yep.
And I figured out very quickly, like within a month or two, I was like, oh, this is because I was bad. I was like, this is bad.
Yeah.
This cannot go
It's gonna
on.
go on. Yeah.
Like I was very thoroughly, heavily depressed,
Yeah.
super anxious and stressed out,
Yeah.
like developing stress-induced OCD stuff,
Right.
holding the lock on my door for 3 seconds, like
Right.
doing the clicker on my phone for like, dude, it would get bad. And so it got to this point where I was like, I had gotten my team dissolved in real estate. I lost my relationship. My cat died. I got in a huge fight with my dad, and a bunch of stuff was just happening, and I lost it. And me and my dad got into this huge fight, and I left to calm down, and I came back, and there's just something different. I was like, I can't, like this. This is horrid.
Yep.
And I came back and I started to do a lot of what you're talking about. I made a schedule. I figured out what I wanted and why I wanted it.
Yep.
I started training MMA at the gym
Yep.
again with people that I used to train with
Yep.
when I was very young, and I expanded my network. I went
Yep.
to the Palego events.
Yep.
I joined a program called Springboard to Wealth that
Right.
has a group of community of people around me based
Right.
in real estate and a mentor. And
Right.
I consider you one of my mentors
Oh,
too.
thank you.
And so it's like I've started to build these connections, and I meditate and I journal and I write about my previous day, and I'm doing all this stuff that like you're talking about, and it's great and very refreshing for me because I see how you are now.
Yeah.
And it tells me while
Thank
I'm in
you.
the middle of it that while it is very challenging and difficult, I'll
Just
get
light at
through
the
it
end of
for
the tunnel.
one,
Yep.
and I'll learn a lot while doing it.
Exactly.
And it'll pay off.
And then if I can give thank you for sharing that,
Yeah.
because I feel like that it takes a lot for someone to share that. I feel like, man, like the end result doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
What matters is your journey.
Yeah.
You as you making progressing towards things that you want to no longer want to be a part of.
Yeah.
That's what should be looked at and
I
celebrated
never
every
used to
single
see
time.
it that way, man. And so during the relationship, I was like always thinking about the big picture, the end goal. And
Yeah.
so now, like you were talking about, that I took a step back. I like I said, she had her fair share of issues too. But
Right.
I have an immense amount of respect and appreciation for her,
Right.
and I thank her. I for everything that she's taught me, for all the experiences that we had, and all
Right.
of that. And so I got a lot of benefit from it, even if it blew up in our faces. And so, I mean, I hope she's happy and
Exactly.
doing her own thing, and I'm starting to get there myself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, it's very refreshing to
Yeah.
be able to hear somebody else's story.
Yeah,
and
man,
know that I'm not alone.
You'll
So,
be you'd be surprised. There's a lot of us. I mean, a lot of our guys in our masterminds, we all went through some sort of drama.
Yeah.
And that's what made us who we are.
Yeah.
Right. And at the end of the day, if your life is so smooth sailing all the time, you're not gonna get that experience, and you're not gonna really dig deep and find out who you truly are.
I agree. Right. And I mean, the adversity in the fact that we go through good and bad, I mean, it's the whole idea of you can't appreciate the sunshine without the rain.
Exactly.
You can't appreciate the heat without the cold.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the thing that pushes you through to learn and realize how beautiful life really is and how lucky we are to be here.
Yeah, no, it is, man. It's at the end of the day, it's just live your life.
Exactly.
Like, live your life how you want it to be lived, how you
Exactly.
imagine yourself to be lived. If your intention to help people, live in a way, put that as your priority to help people. Figure out ways that you can add values.
Yeah.
If your intention to hurt people, there's people do that too. So like, really,
intentionality matters.
Yeah, it does matter. So
yeah.
But yeah, it definitely took a lot for me too. But at the end of the day, I'll tell you this: that journey is worth every single late nights, early mornings, just literally giving up a lot of things, a lot of sacrifices.
Yeah.
Like, when I was on that journey, all my friends, oh, you want to go out this weekend? I was like, no, I can't. Like, I'm focusing on myself right now. This is what I'm going to be working on. Mm-hmm. You're still a younger age, but as you're like growing and learning, experiencing more life ahead of you, the most powerful thing I can share with you is learn to say no.
Yeah.
Because trust me, once you master how to say no and only do the things that really truly feed your souls and your energy and everything else, it's powerful, because then you're not wasting time on meaningless conversation.
Yeah.
You're not wasting time on meaningless hangouts that these guys or girls are gonna like get you back into your old ways, right? So really, learn to say no is a big thing. Stay focused on your goals. And then just enjoy life, man. Just go enjoy the process, because the process is amazing, dude. Like,
I mean, once you get to the end, it's over. So the process is all we got.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, once you get to the end, the thing about us is that even when we get to the end of the goal, we always constantly have different goals.
Exactly.
So like the process, that's like my plan. Like really, every time I start something, I focus more on the process than the outcome.
Yeah.
Just mainly because even if I don't set high expectation, I won't be disappointed if the outcome doesn't come out to be the way I want.
Yeah.
But then if I focus more on the process, like, oh, I'm a lot more stronger than I was last month through this process that I'm working with, that's a win.
Yeah, and you can't get the outcome without the process.
Exactly. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's a great final note to end on. Appreciate the process, people. Thank you for coming on the show.
Man.
You
Thanks for having me.
Of gems, man. It was awesome.
Thanks, dude. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I love doing this, and I can't wait to see you continue to do this podcasting.
I appreciate it,
and it's gonna be
Dude,
pretty awesome, man.
For sure. Repeat guests are welcome on this show.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to find him, I'll definitely drop his socials in the description, and stay tuned for more episodes coming out in the future. All right, thanks, guys.
Bye.
Dude, that was awesome.
Dude, that was good, man.
Fucking awesome.
Dude, thanks for sharing, dude.
Dude, thank you.